My girlfriend texted me. I need some space. Don't reach out. I replied, okay. Then, I quietly canceled her birthday present and changed the locks. Weeks later, she called saying she was ready to resume things. By then, there was nothing left to resume. My name is Alex. I am 31 years old, and I work in operations management for a logistics company. I live in a mid-sized city in the Midwest, keep a steady routine, go to work early, lift weights after, and spend most evenings at home unless there is a reason not to. My life is structured and predictable by choice. My girlfriend Jenna is 29. We had been together a little over 3 years. We did not live together, but she stayed at my place most nights and kept a drawer and a key. We shared holidays, friend groups, and long-term plans, at least in theory. I am posting here because I want outside perspective before anyone accuses me of rewriting history. I tend to move quietly when I am done, and that makes people uncomfortable. At the beginning, Jenna liked to say she appreciated how calm I was. I paid my bills on time, planned ahead, and did not thrive on chaos. Over time, that appreciation turned into irritation. She called me rigid. She said I lacked spontaneity. What she really meant was that I did not jump when she changed plans last minute or created emergencies out of boredom. She had a habit of framing her moods as my responsibility. If she was stressed, I was distant. If she was bored, I was predictable. If she snapped at me, it was because I had not read the room. I addressed it early, clearly, and without drama. I told her I was fine with space and independence, but not with disrespect disguised as honesty. She would back off just enough to reset things, then slowly drift back to the same behavior. Her birthday was coming up, which matters because she treats birthdays like performance reviews. She expects a production. I had already planned something expensive and personal, booked weeks in advance, and coordinated time off work. She knew none of this. About 10 days before her birthday, on a Tuesday afternoon while I was in a meeting, my phone buzzed. It was a long message from her explaining that she needed space to think and that I should not reach out. She framed it as self-care, said she felt overwhelmed by expectations and needed silence to reset. I read it twice. Then I replied once, briefly, and without emotion. I said okay. That was the moment everything shifted. Not because I was angry, but because I finally took her at her word. When I said okay, I meant it literally. No follow-up questions. No checking in. No reassurance fishing. She asked for space and silence, so I gave her exactly that. The first thing I did was sit with it for an hour and make sure I was not reacting emotionally. I looked at her message again and paid attention to the wording. She did not say temporary. She did not give a timeline. She did not say she loved me. She said do not reach out. That is not a pause. That is a withdrawal. So I adjusted accordingly. I canceled the birthday reservation the same day. Non-refundable deposit, gone. I did not do it out of spite. I did it because planning a celebration for someone who does not want contact is irrational. I also returned the gift. It was custom, expensive, and very specific to her. Keeping it would have made no sense. Next, I addressed logistics. She had a key to my place. She came and went as she pleased. I changed the locks that Friday. Again, not dramatic. If someone asked for distance, access is part of that. I boxed up the few things she kept at my apartment, labeled everything, and stacked it neatly in the spare room. Then I went on with my routine. This is the part people seem to struggle with when I explain it. I did not sit around waiting. I did not count days. I did not test the boundary she set. I assumed she meant what she said. About a week in, mutual friends started acting strange. I got vague check-ins asking how I was holding up. One of them hinted that Jenna was surprised I had not chased her or tried to talk things through. That confirmed something I had suspected for a long time. The space request was not about space. It was leverage. She expected distance to scare me. She expected silence to make me panic. She expected a dramatic reconciliation where she could return on her terms, reassured of her importance. Instead, she got quiet compliance. 2 weeks passed with no contact. Then 3. Her birthday came and went. I did nothing. No text. No gift. No public post. Nothing. That was when the tone changed. I started getting indirect messages. A like on an old photo. A reaction in a group chat. Small signals designed to reopen the door without actually acknowledging what she had asked for. I ignored all of it. By the 4th week, she called. I did not answer. The voicemail she left said she was ready to talk now and asked why I was acting distant. That was the first time I actually laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was revealing. I listened to the voicemail once and deleted it. Not because I was trying to be cruel, but because the message made something very clear. She was not calling to respect her own boundary. She was calling to see if she could reverse it. A few hours later, she texted. She said she did not understand why I was being cold and that the space was never meant to be permanent. She said she had needed time to clear her head and expected me to be supportive instead of distant. That was the first time she rewrote the story out loud. I responded calmly and directly. I told her I had respected exactly what she asked for. I said I did not reach out because she told me not to. I also told her that during that time, I had made decisions based on the assumption that the relationship was paused indefinitely. She replied almost immediately, and her tone shifted. Suddenly, she was upset. She said I was being dramatic. She said normal couples take space without blowing everything up. She said changing the locks was extreme. I explained that space includes access. I explained that planning birthdays and keeping keys does not align with silence. I kept it factual and short. She asked when she could come by, so we could talk in person. I said there was nothing to talk through in person that could not be said clearly over text. That set her off. She accused me of punishing her. She said I was trying to teach her a lesson. She said I was acting controlling by deciding things unilaterally. This is where I think context matters. For 3 years, I had communicated concerns early and directly. I did not sulk. I did not withdraw affection as leverage. I addressed patterns when they appeared. She dismissed them until she needed reassurance. Now that I was calm and final, she called it control. I told her I was not punishing her. I was responding. I told her that asking for space without a timeline is a risk and that she chose to take it. I also told her that I had already moved on mentally and practically. She went quiet for almost a full day. The next message was softer. She said she missed me. She said she felt ready to resume things and asked if we could just reset and move forward. That was the moment she expected relief. Instead, I felt nothing. Because during the weeks of silence, I had already grieved the relationship she thought she was pausing. When she said she was ready to resume things, I realized we were no longer talking about the same relationship. For her, nothing real had happened yet. In her mind, the silence was a dramatic intermission, a test, a reset button. For me, it was a conclusion. I told her that during the time she asked for space, I took inventory of the relationship without the constant noise. No daily texts. No mood management. No guessing what version of her I was getting that day. Just quiet and distance. And in that quiet, things became obvious. I told her that the relationship only functioned when I was actively compensating, planning, initiating, smoothing things over, absorbing frustration. When she removed herself, nothing remained on its own. She did not like that framing. She said I was exaggerating. She said I was acting like a victim. She reminded me of all the good moments, the trips, the inside jokes, the future plans we talked about. She said everyone needs reassurance sometimes, and that relationships are not transactional. I agreed with her on one point. Relationships are not transactional. That is exactly why I stopped participating in one that only worked when I overfunctioned. She asked if I had met someone else. I said no. That answer confused her more than if I had said yes. She kept searching for a dramatic reason that would justify my lack of urgency. There was none. She asked if we could try couples counseling. I said I was not interested in repairing something I no longer wanted to be part of. She asked if we could just meet for closure. I said closure happens when behavior meets consequence, not when someone feels ready to talk again. That message ended the conversation for a few days. Then she showed up at my building unannounced. Security called to ask if I was expecting someone. I said no. She texted from the lobby saying she just wanted 5 minutes and that this was ridiculous. She said I was being stubborn and cold and that she did not recognize me anymore. I replied that this was the version of me that listens carefully the first time someone tells me what they want. She left. After that, the tone shifted again. The messages turned sharp. Accusations replaced confusion. She told mutual friends I had blindsided her, that I overreacted, that I had punished her for needing space. I did not correct the narrative, because anyone who knew me well enough already understood why I did exactly what I did. After she showed up unannounced, I realized something important. Silence without finality still leaves room for intrusion. I do not like repeated boundary enforcement. If I have to explain the same limit twice, it means the limit is not being respected. So I decided to close the loop properly. That night, I sent one final message. It was not emotional, and it was not long. I told her that the relationship was over, that I was not open to resuming it now or later, and that further contact was not welcome. I wished her well and told her I hoped she found what she was looking for. She responded immediately, of course. She said blocking was immature. She said adults talk things through. She said I was avoiding accountability. She said I was afraid of feelings. She said I owed her a conversation after everything we had shared. That message confirmed the decision for me. I blocked her number. Then I blocked her on every platform she had access to. Instagram, messaging apps, email. I even adjusted my privacy settings so mutual friends could not tag me in posts she might see. This was not done out of anger. It was done to prevent erosion. People like to argue that blocking is extreme. I disagree. Blocking is what you do when someone repeatedly tries to renegotiate a boundary you have already made clear. It is not punishment. It is maintenance. The fallout was predictable. Within a day, I heard from 2 friends asking what happened and why Jenna was upset. I told them the truth in one sentence. She asked for space and told me not to reach out. I respected that and moved on. When she came back, there was nothing left to return to. Some understood immediately. Others were uncomfortable because it did not fit the story they preferred, where breakups are loud and messy and mutual. A few days later, she tried contacting me through a friend's phone. I did not respond. Then through email. Blocked. Then through a coworker she had met once at a party. I shut that down politely and firmly. Each attempt made the outcome more permanent. I noticed something interesting during that time. My life did not collapse. My routine stayed intact. My stress levels dropped. Evenings were quiet in a way they had not been in years. That is usually how you know you made the right call. By the time she stopped trying, I was already far enough removed that it felt like someone else's problem. About a week after I blocked her everywhere, the secondary fallout started. This is the part nobody talks about. When someone loses direct access to you, they look for indirect access. Stories get adjusted. Details get blurred. Suddenly people are confused and asking questions you did not invite. One friend asked why I had changed the lock so fast, like that was the headline. Another asked if I had secretly been planning to end things anyway. One even asked if I had been seeing someone else during the silence. I answered each question once, calmly, and with the same facts. She asked for space. She told me not to reach out. I respected that. I made decisions based on what she said, not what she later wished she meant. Some people nodded and moved on. Others looked unsettled, not because they disagreed, but because it forced them to confront something uncomfortable. That words have consequences even when spoken casually. What really got around, though, was the birthday. Apparently Jenna had told people she assumed I would still do something. She said she thought I would surprise her despite the silence, that I would show initiative and prove I cared. When nothing happened, she felt embarrassed explaining why. That part mattered more to her than the relationship. It reframed a lot for me. I realized she did not miss me. She missed the version of me that anticipated her needs without being asked. The version that absorbed discomfort so she did not have to feel it. When that version did not show up on command, she felt rejected. There were a few attempts to provoke a response. Passive-aggressive posts. Quotes about emotional unavailability. Vague references to being discarded. Mutual friends would mention them casually, waiting to see if I reacted. I did not. I was not trying to be stoic. I simply had no interest in re-entering a dynamic where clarity only existed on one side. Around this time, I found the box with her things still sitting in the spare room. I realized I had not thought about it in days. That was another data point. I dropped the box off with a mutual friend who agreed to pass it along. No note. No message. Just logistics handled cleanly. That seemed to be the moment it finally sank in for her. Because after that, there were no more attempts. Silence returned, but this time, it was mutual. About 3 weeks after everything went quiet, I got a call from an unknown number while I was at work. I did not answer it. I never answer unknown numbers unless I am expecting one. They left a voicemail. It was Jenna. She sounded calmer than before, which I recognized immediately as strategy. She said she was calling from a friend's phone because she knew I had blocked her. She said she respected that, but just needed to say one thing. She said she had been doing a lot of thinking and was finally in a good place. She said she understood now and was ready to move forward together in a healthier way. Together. That word stood out. She framed it like a conclusion we had both been working toward, as if the weeks of silence were a process instead of an ending. She said she missed what we had. She said she believed we were stronger than this. She asked me to call her back so we could talk like adults. I deleted the voicemail. Not because I was angry, not because I was tempted, but because by then, it felt like hearing from a former coworker about a job I quit months ago. Familiar voice, outdated context. Later that day, A mutual friend mentioned that Jenna had been telling people she felt blindsided and abandoned, that she never thought I would actually walk away, that she believed asking for space was safe because I had always stayed before. That was the most honest thing she had said the entire time. She did not expect consequences. She expected elasticity. I realized then that the relationship had been operating on an unspoken rule. I would always bend. She could always retreat. The moment I stopped playing my role, the structure collapsed. There was nothing dramatic left to process. No urge to respond. No curiosity about what she would say next. Just a quiet certainty that I had already stepped out of the cycle. Weeks passed. Then more. Her name stopped coming up. My days felt lighter. Not happier in a loud way, just steadier. Like background tension I had grown used to was finally gone. That is when I knew the relationship had ended long before her text asking for space. I had just finally listened. About 2 months after the breakup, I ran into someone who had seen the whole thing from the outside. It was a co-worker's partner at a small dinner. Someone who knew Jenna casually, but was not emotionally invested in either of us. We talked for a bit, and eventually my name came up in a conversation about unexpected breakups. She said something that stuck with me. She said Jenna genuinely believed you would wait. Not because you were weak, but because you were consistent. She thought consistency meant permanence. That explained a lot. Jenna had built her sense of security on the assumption that I would always be there when she came back from whatever internal storm she decided to step into. She confused reliability with obligation. She thought asking for space was risk-free because I had never made it risky before. The problem was that consistency without reciprocity is not stability. It is inertia. Looking back, the signs were everywhere. Decisions framed as temporary that were never revisited. Apologies that reset behavior instead of changing it. Emotional distance treated like a pause button instead of a warning. Her birthday situation became a story she told herself to feel wronged. She said I abandoned her on an important day. What she left out was that she had removed herself first and assumed I would still perform. That assumption cost her the relationship. I did not feel triumphant about that. I felt resolved. There is a strange peace that comes from knowing you acted in alignment with your values instead of your fears. I did not chase. I did not punish. I did not negotiate against myself. I listened carefully. Then I acted accordingly. Every time I replay the sequence, the logic holds. If someone asks for distance, you give it fully. If they remove access, you do not hover outside the door. If they return and expect everything to be intact, that expectation belongs to them alone. I never told her I would wait. She just assumed I would. And assumptions are fragile things to build a relationship on. A few months later, the story made one last attempt to circle back. A mutual friend mentioned that Jenna had started dating someone new and that it was moving fast. She made a point of saying it casually, but the timing was deliberate. I recognized the pattern immediately. This was not information. It was a probe. I said I hoped it worked out for her and changed the subject. That response seemed to disappoint her more than anger ever would have. Apparently, Jenna had been telling people that I changed overnight, that I shut down, that I refused to communicate, that I weaponized silence. She framed herself as someone who asked for something reasonable and got discarded. What she never mentioned was that she had asked for silence from someone who had always been present, or that she expected access without accountability, or that she believed space only counted if the other person stayed emotionally available. I never corrected her version publicly. People who paid attention noticed the inconsistency on their own. People who needed drama kept their version. I did not need to manage either. What mattered to me was that I had not compromised myself to preserve something already broken. I did not beg for clarity from someone who spoke clearly the first time. I did not cling to potential when the actual pattern was right in front of me. The relationship ended quietly because it had been dying quietly for a long time. Jenna did not lose me when I blocked her. She lost me when she treated presence as guaranteed and distance as a game. Blocking just formalized what was already true. I do not think she expected that kind of ending. No fight. No dramatic goodbye. No door left unlocked. Just a clean stop. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like my actions matched my self-respect. The last thing I will say about this is the simplest part, and somehow the hardest for people to accept. There was nothing left to resume. By the time Jenna said she was ready, I was already done. Not emotionally burned out. Not bitter. Just finished. The version of me that held the relationship together stopped showing up the moment I took her words seriously. I did not end things in a rush. I did not snap. I did not punish her for needing space. I just removed myself from a situation that only worked when I ignored my own limits. That is what people keep missing. She asked for space and silence. I gave it fully. In that silence, I realized how much effort it took to keep us afloat and how little remained without it. When she came back, she expected continuity. I had already reached clarity. I think she believed love meant elasticity, that I would always stretch, always wait, always reopen the door. She mistook patience for permanence and consistency for obligation. I do not hate her. I do not wish her harm. I hope she finds someone who fits the dynamic she wants. But that person is not me. Blocking her was not the breakup. The breakup happened when I stopped negotiating with myself. Blocking just made it permanent. If there is any advice buried in this, it is this. When someone tells you what they want, listen carefully. Do not translate it into something safer. Do not assume they will come back the same way they left. And do not keep a seat warm for someone who asked to walk away. I respected her request exactly as stated. She just did not expect me to mean it.